thanks very much for having me. Hope it's going to be interesting. I've had an interesting career. I've made many mistakes. I've run 2 startups, founded 2, sold 2, made money once, lost a lot of money twice. That's why I'm still working. But I have found my home, I think, now with Atlassian. And I'm going to talk you through how some of the experience I've had to make them very personal, but also some of the ways that Atlassian thinks about the world. I think that might be interesting, and one of the reasons I've joined is because I think the way Atlassian thinks is the way I think. Hopefully you'll share some of that with me. So the first thing is at Atlassian we have a vision about, or a mission to unleash the potential in every team. So Atlassian's really focused on how do you make teams productive and get that scaling of accelerated delivery with teams. It's teams that we can achieve very little on our own. So I was quite excited about that, having worked in organisations and ran very small teams. My first startup that I did, there were 5 of us in a place. I wish it looked like this, but it didn't. It was back in the, more years than I care to remember. About 30 years ago, they didn't have places like this. It was in some shed somewhere in somebody's garden. But teams are the real other thing that kicks everything off. So in Atlassian, one of the things that's interesting is Atlassian has spent a long time looking at what teams are the most productive on the planet. So we spent quite a long time looking at that. And as we look at it, some of the characteristics we see of high-performing teams are these kinds of characteristics. So these are the characteristics that you'd think when we looked at the most high-performing team we could find, or the most efficient team we could find, these are the kind of characteristics they had. No new news, right? Clear processes. It's so boring, right? I mean, it's like, really? That's it? Nothing about, we all have cuddly toys that we carry around with us, or beanbag parties. Nothing like that in there at all. So stable teams. We all know that having groups of people who can work together and build teams, the storming, norming, forming, all the performing things, stable teams, personalised tools, the bring your own. I have my favourite editor, my favourite user experience tools that I use. Strong manager, something focus the team because we all get distracted. Sometimes in Atlassian, I describe Atlassian sometimes. A friend of me said, what's it like working at Atlassian? And I said, well, you've got to imagine 2,000 cats in a glitter factory. Okay? We are such doers in Atlassian. One of the challenges with Atlassian I'll come on to later is, it's trying to get us to focus on getting everybody aligned and shipped the same thing together. And I'll come back to that in a minute. But you need a strong manager, structured roles, etc. Now, the interesting thing when we looked at the teams that meet these characteristics the best, the most highly efficient teams we could find, they kind of look like this. Ouch. Bethlehem Steel was where we found one of the most efficient teams on the planet. They had all those characteristics. They shipped, all they did every single day in Bethlehem Steel was they literally took coal from a pile over here, put it on a shovel, and put it into a furnace over here. All day, every day, for hours and hours and hours. They had specialised tools, shovel, 21-pound shovel, that was optimised for getting the most coal from here over to here. They had scheduled breaks, all the things that you see on that chart. Is that the world that we want to live in? Is that the world we work in? Doesn't feel like where I want to live. And I'm going to come back to that in a minute. One of the things as we think about the world differently, is I'd like to think about some of the things I've seen as I've tried to do large-scale transformations. So I worked at Skype. So I was brought in by Silver Lake Private Equity to help with Skype, fix Skype, which was exciting, just before Microsoft purchased it for $8.5 billion. I was also involved in the transformation of Lloyd's banking group with 23,000 people to think more digitally. And one of my observations is, to make that kind of change in an organisation, you need these 3 things. Again, wow, that's really mind-blowing, right? You need trust in an organisation. It's almost disappointing I have to put those 3 words up. But has anybody ever heard of Scrum before? Okay. One of the things I love about Scrum, there are many things we could talk about Scrum for hours and many other approaches, and I'll talk about that later. One of the things I love about Scrum is just like these 3 things. First page of Scrum says, Scrum is a framework for delivering software. It's easy to understand and hard to do well. Easy to understand, hard to do well. I'm going to talk a little bit about what that means. So, the first thing is, as we look at, I want you to hold that question in your mind about, is that the place we want to work? I'm going to ask you another question, because you look quite smart, you look really intelligent. So I'm going to ask you I want you to participate with me on this. So this is a study done by a social scientist called McGregor. Has anybody seen this before? Okay. So this was done by McGregor, and I want you to think about it for a moment. So the whole idea that the research McGregor did said there's theory X people and there's theory Y people. I just want you to read down the list of theory X characteristics and theory Y characteristics, and think, do I know anybody in my organisation or the people or my friends, maybe my relative, partner, who works in more like this way? They dislike their work. They need to be supervised at every step. Unless I'm there watching them do the work doesn't get done. Classic, no incentive to work, ambition, therefore they need to be enticed by rewards to get things done. Think about that for a moment. Does anybody know anybody like that they've worked with or for, or anybody? No? Or no? Maybe, not sure. Wow, you are an interesting audience. I want to find all your friends. The other thing is theory Y. So theory Y is there are theory Y people who are happy to work on their own, enjoy taking ownership of their work, solve problems creatively and imaginatively. How many of you are like that? Yeah? Okay. Interestingly, statistically, most of you would have said you've met people like this, but all of you think you're like this. And what McGregor said was, the interesting thing is there is no such thing as theory X and theory Y people. There is where they work makes the biggest difference. There's no such thing as somebody, there's nobody who starts out like this. And when you start thinking about your organisations and you as leaders, as future leaders or leaders already in your organisation, or people that you just work with, I want you to take away that nobody starts out like this. You have made them like that, if they are like that, or you're not helping them to be like that. Trust me, I worked in banking. Woo-hoo-hoo! I no longer work in banking. But I have worked in large corporates and small organisations where there's some founders I've worked with in my past. They hire people and then whip the hell out of them until they get stuff done. So again, it's not about scale, it's about culture. That's one of the things I want to talk about, and that's all about trust. So I'm always curious, when an organisation hires people, how long they spend hiring people. At Atlassian, we have a long process of hiring. You meet 28 different people over 5 different time zones. You do all sorts of crazy things, meet people. I remember one person telling me they had an interview with somebody who turned up with a crocodile outfit on because we were having a party one day, and so that's what you saw on the end of your Skype chat. It's like, okay. But we are really careful about making sure that we hire people we trust, because then you don't need to worry about where they are or what they're doing. So, interestingly enough, recently, I don't know whether anybody have heard of Agile Manifesto. Anybody heard of the Agile Manifesto? Okay. So Ron Jeffries has just come out and said this month, or last month, which I think is quite interesting. So why has Ron Jeffries said that? Well, Ron Jeffries is now saying, just like Bethlehem Steel, that large organisations in general are now using Agile as a weapon against developers. Because they don't trust them to do the work, the transparency that Agile gives executives and leaders and managers that they never had before is now being used to beat up developers and all the other people on a team who now they, for the first time, are seeing information that because the executives can see the work, they're now criticising the work more than they ever could do with waterfall and more traditional models because they couldn't see that it was complete chaos before. But nobody could see that because no plan ever reflected reality. Now they can see what the plan looks like. They're beating everybody up because they don't like the plan. Because they don't trust the people doing the work. So I think it's interesting that Ron Jeffries has come out and said this. And we should really think about and reflect on, as if we lead teams and we're in organisations, are we encouraging this? Are we encouraging the fact that that transparency is beating up teams? In fact, I was in one meeting, I will not say where, because I've had many places I've worked, where for the first time a senior executive saw a burn-down chart from the team. Now, I walked into that meeting, I had no idea the project manager who was doing their first Agile project was going to take a burn-down chart in. First thing the senior executive said was, why on Wednesday did the velocity go down a lot? I'm like, you are kidding me. You wouldn't have seen a plan for like 3 months in the old way of working, and now you're beating some manager up about what the team were doing on a Wednesday? So just think about, when you go through that, think about the trust thing. This is one of my favourite books about, if you ever have worked with managers or are a manager or a leader, this is an awesome book. For those who don't like reading, David Marquette does videos, which are equally, he summarises it quite well. I've met David. He's a fantastic, very charismatic character. He was the skipper of a nuclear submarine. Has anybody read this book? Yeah, a couple. He was the skipper of a nuclear submarine. In the US Navy, when you're a skipper of a US submarine, you are the guru on that vessel. There is nothing you don't know. You are given the manuals months before you get a ship, and you read them all. And David read all the manuals for the new ship, the new submarine he was getting. Problem was, they gave him a different one. At the last minute, they changed the submarine. He was no longer the smartest person on the ship. So a quick story that David tells in the book, and I'll only tell you one because there's some fantastic leadership examples in there about how to manage without telling people what to do and giving people back the trust. He says at one point he was on the ship, his first time at sea trials, when they take the submarine out for sea trials. He said he issues the command to the first officer. First officer, ahead 2/3. First officer says, crewman, ahead 2/3. Nothing happens. First officer, ahead 2/3. First officer says, crewman, ahead 2/3. Nothing happens. I'm the skipper. I have issued a command and nothing is happening. This feels wrong to me. So he goes to the first officer and he said, first officer, I don't understand. I've issued a command and nothing is happening. Why is nothing happening? Well, nothing is happening, sir, because this submarine has no 2/3. Oh, so no, and then David said, so why didn't you tell me we don't have 2/3? You're the skipper, sir, and the rules say that we just do whatever you tell us. And that's it. So David then turns, he does a whole heap of there's a whole heap of knowledge in this. One of the things I love is, this is a reason why you should move to the model of giving your teams the ability to make better decisions. I've worked in organisations where if you don't follow the process, you get fired. The danger with just mindlessly following a process is, it's the most risky thing you can do if the context has changed. We work in a world now where that happens every day. David Marquette worked on a nuclear submarine where the world changes minute by minute. It's a good book, take a look at it. At Atlassian, one of the ways we solve that is because we have a set of values that we strongly believe in. One of those is open company, no bullshit. What that means is we have surprisingly open conversations about things that people don't agree with in the company. It can be pretty uncomfortable sometimes watching that happen, and it happens in real time on Confluence. So suddenly you'll find the founders of Atlassian, even though they're billionaires now, just wondering, like in the middle of it, you'll see Mike and Scott suddenly pop up and go, actually, I think this. And you're like, okay. But Mike and Scott want to hear that. So in your organisation, think about how you're doing that in your organisation. I just want to talk, I'm going to quickly focus on purpose now. This is Scrum, and this is how it can feel working in Scrum, or any other agile approach if you're not careful. Repeatable without the Y is called monotony. If you're a developer working on product backlog item 230, and next week you're the developer working on backlog item 360, and the week after that you're working on backlog item 750, it kind of feels like this. Shovel the coal, walk over here, put the coal in the hole. Back again, coal. Why are we doing this? To make steel? Okay, how does that make me feel better? Not really. So one of the things I'm always thoughtful about is this is the app I used to show my old boss. If anybody hasn't seen this app, it is scarily life-changing. It's called Life Calendar Journal. It puts a circle up for every year of your life and shows them getting filled in as you live your life. And it has a number at the end. When you're a developer working on a project, or a UX person, or anybody on a team, and you've realised you've wasted a whole one of those circles on something that you have no idea why, that is a focusing moment. As I used to tell my old boss, I am not spending another year of my life hitting my head against the same brick wall because I have so many dots left, John. So when you think about working with teams and the purpose, if they don't know why they're building what they're working, if they're smart, they're looking at this, you're looking at this, and you're thinking, why the hell am I doing this? In larger organisations, your ability to be so far away from the why am I doing it gets increasingly hard. My favourite job of all time, there were two jobs I've had that were my favourite. This is my third. Two before this. The first one was when I built medical software, and we built HIV. We actually did, when you now have HIV, you get a whole set of drug regimes given to you. My company built all the modelling software for that back in the late 80s, early 90s. Why is that important to me? Because I knew why we were doing it, and I could see the impact we were having. My second role I had that was most interesting for me was when I worked at Skype. You have no idea until you work for Skype what it feels like to walk up to somebody. I remember walking to the US Immigration Authority. Anybody been there? To US Immigration, when you go through passport control, they have like no sense of humour. Like none. Right? It is a no sense of humour zone. I walked up to them. I remember walking up into Seattle. We'd just been acquired by Microsoft. And I said to the guy, hello, I'm here. And he said, why are you here? And I'm like, I've come for business. Who do you work for? Skype. I love Skype. I talk to my mother every day on Skype. She lives in whatever country it was. Are you getting that to your teams? Are you giving that level of, why the hell are we doing this? Am I feeling better about this? That will generate 10 times more outcome than a better plan. Okay, so the other thing is give them the information they need. This is, again, one of David's quotes that he uses internally. Get the information to the people. Get them the why. You can only begin to imagine, I love the fact when we do this experimentation. What we're going to do is we're going to experiment for a whole year on a new feature, and we're going to put a feature toggle on it. Oh, okay, that sounds great. Let's do that. So off the team go, trundling away for a whole year. And then at some point somebody goes, nah, didn't really like that. Boop. You spend a whole year building that thing. And actually, in fact, they don't even know anybody switched it off. It's like being a movie actor, and then suddenly you go, your first role in a big movie, and then suddenly you find it's been cut when you go to the cinema with all your friends. It's like, that sucks. So tell them, right? Let them know it's not. Don't take your friends to the movie. It's not going to be in, right? At least you don't look dumb. So share the insights and whys. If you're doing user research, some of the development teams are too far away sometimes. Some of you are developers, I'm still guessing. Any developers here? Yeah. It can suck if you have no idea why the hell you're doing what you're doing. Okay, so people deliver better when they understand why. Make people smile. Show them how what they're doing impacts other people. Most engineers get out of bed every morning because they want to make a difference. If they have no idea how it's making a difference, they won't do good work. So, final one, alignment. We all have different measures. It's exciting, right? Everybody, so operations people who they have trying to keep the service up in banking. That's 99.999% uptime in banking. Skype, the same. Developers are trying to ship everything as quickly as possible. That's a conflict. So operations people are there sitting there going, you're not changing the code on my watch. And experienced people are going, woo, we just want to make everybody happy. And that's got to work, right? You've got a whole set of different metrics. So, and then you've got to fit it into this. This is what a bank looks like. Here's some numbers of thousands of people that get involved. And you've got to make all that work across all those 1,000 people. This is the kind of, and each one of those circles is a team of about 7 or 8 people. There's thousands of people involved. Nobody actually realizes how complicated banking can get. So making that work across that means you get this. Every single team thinks they're doing the right thing. Every single team is finishing their stories. Yes, another story. Ding dong. You are shipping like nothing. When I turned up at Skype, that's what I found. I turned up at Skype, 300 teams at Skype. Yes, you heard me right. 300 teams it takes to ship Skype. It's complicated to make video work across the globe. 300 teams doing this, all thinking they're doing awesome things. We hadn't shipped a new release of Skype in 18 months. So, we started off by saying, you know what, you all ship the experience. At Microsoft, I love the fact, when I turned up at Microsoft, they have one thing that says, we all ship software. Are you a software tester? Yes, your job is not to stop software getting shipped. I know you think it is, but it's not. Your job is to ship the software like everybody else. So help. So the first thing is we did this. The second thing is, at Skype, we created an organizational backlog. At the organizational level, we said, these are the things we care about in the order we care about them. Why did we do that? We did that so that 300 product owners could stop fighting about who was the most important. Because the executives told them. They just put up a backlog and said, if you have to work out which team is going to work on what in which order, this is the order. And then we created something called the wrong order-ometer. So that we had a chart that showed the team that was working in the most wrong order. And they got an award every 3 months, which is a tin of Vegemite, or Marmite in the UK. A tub of horrible spread that you put on your toast. So some people love it, some people hate it. Yeah, there are lovers and haters. And we also had different awards for teams that were working oddly down that backlog, just as a bit of fun. Then all teams can focus on shipping the highest thing first. With that, you have this. That's what you get if you start to have a one backlog approach at the team level, and you link everything back to that. We went from shipping 3% of the outcomes we needed to over 30% in the space of a year. Now that sounds like a long time, but trust me, if anybody hasn't tried to do transformation with 300 teams before, it's freaking hard, right? 300 teams with the most opinionated developers on the planet, and trust me, they are opinionated. You get 10 times increased value by having that backlog, and then we kept on improving and improving. So repeatability, finally. When you're trying to do repeatability at this level, you have to optimize for simple over smart every time. The number of organizations I'm like, we're going to roll out safe, and I'm like, oh my God, Scaled Agile framework, really? That's like really hard. There's like thousands of pages of guidance. It feels like a process manual again. Nobody ever reads the effing manual. Make your ways of working so simple that somebody can't say they don't understand it. A number of times we had, in Skype, you had 300 teams and you go, so why are you working up the backlog the wrong way? One of the things they could never say is, we didn't understand. Okay, there's an order of a backlog, right? I mean, you're paid like half the sum of, you're paid the national debt of Brazil as a team to fix the problem, and you don't understand you start at the top and work to the bottom. Really? Okay, maybe we need to think about who we hire next. The other thing we gave people is what I call enabling constraints. Enabling constraints are, give people some really clear rules. Again, make the rules really simple so that nobody can argue with them. They may not like them, but they're simple. And just say, go for it. You can do what the hell you want. Work down the backlog at the organisational level in the order we told you and hit those targets. You're a smart team. Work it out. If you can't work it out, we'll come and help. We've got people who can help. We'll get you, but just work it out. Here's some simple constraints. And then have those teams publish their working agreements openly so that everybody else can see how they're working. And publish it on, we use Confluence internally. If you've got a wiki tool, we use Confluence. You can use whatever tool you've got. And make sure every team knows how other teams work. Which days do you have your reviews, your retrospectives? Which days do you do your sprint reviews? All those kind of things. If you're using Scrum, just publish those up so that teams can know how to work with you. And repeatable shouldn't be 100%. If you're repeating stupid things, you're stupid. All right? And the first thing that my experience of running large agile transformations, and I ran Skype for Windows for a while, guess which of the events in Scrum is dropped first? The retrospective. Why? We're too smart to improve. No, I mean, we don't understand anymore how to get better. That is not a reason to remove the retrospective. That is a reason to go and find somebody else to help you. So repeatable doesn't mean repeating the same things. Find others to help you. Really smart teams, the best teams I've ever worked with. First of all, they fight the most out of any teams I've ever worked with, because they're all strong and opinionated and want things to be better, like most sports teams. Most sports teams that are high-performing do not get on with each other. Because they get on with each other to get the job done. You're not there in a team or as a manager to have a wonderful time. You're there to drive the right outcomes. So think about that. So what does this mean for you? First of all, I love this phrase. So when you go back and you start blaming the individuals for how crap they are, it's your fault. Because you're part of the system. So Edward Deming, who is the guru of systems thinking, he basically single-handedly almost fixed Japan after the Second World War. This is one of the phrases he used, and I think that's awesome. And as you think about moving forward, think about trusting the talent you hire and earning the trust. Deliver better outcomes by having your teams understand the why. And if you don't know what the why is, by the way, you're a victim. Go and ask. It's not an excuse to go, nobody told me. Go and ask. And then alignment without a common goal is chaos. Having 200 autonomous teams, trust me, being there, is madness. It's just chaos. It's not agile, it's just chaos. And every time what you do need to have is some harmonization of the work as the teams touch each other and go up. You need some harmonization. Atlassian has a lot of this described in some of the playbooks. So anybody who just searches for the word Atlassian and then playbook, if you want to do team health, how are your team doing in these areas? You can start to go to the Atlassian playbooks. They're free. You just run them internally. You may not like the answers you get, but Agile is a good mirror. Take a look at our playbooks. Be the change you seek. That's one of our values, which I love. Go and make it happen in your own organisations. Hopefully you've taken something away. And with that, thank you very much.